Trades in Transition.
All right, well, thank you guys for joining for yet another edition of Trades in Transition. I've got a really special guest with me today, Kyle Howard. He's been a Carolina Hurricanes fan. He has a YouTube channel based in interviewing Carolina-only fans, hockey teams, managers, and people that sing at do the anthems and the whole nine. I personally know nothing about hockey, but I saw an intelligence to this conversation. So from ice to intelligence, how AI is changing the voice of hockey. So my question is, what happens when the voice of the game meets something that has never played it? So I'm going to let him jump in. We'll let, look at things like arena ambiance, light crowd and noise swell. And do you think AI could ever replace the commentator? What do you think, dude?
I don't. Honestly, I think that the way it's set up now with the human aspect of it, you have the play-by-play, which I know AI is continuously learning. It's a learning machine. It picks up on things. But with it actually doing the commentary, I don't see that really in any aspect being a part of that. I think it's more or less it's been and is being used as a tool instead of something that would take over that human aspect. From the things that I've seen and in my experience with AI and in doing like live actual events, during the games, I'll get in there and I'll ask it a question and it'll totally get it wrong. Or it'll be close to getting it right but not exactly right. And that's because the amount of time that it takes for everything to download from the actual game to the websites to getting it to where AI can access it is about a 25-minute delay. Almost a whole period of play.
So are there four?
There's three.
325? Okay.
And so during like say the first period of the game, I can type in, ask it a question, and it'll get part of it, but not all of it. And then I have to go back and correct it, and it'll go back and search again, and instantly bring it. Oh yeah, you're right. It was this. And so you have to kind of teach it as you go. And that's where the downfall is from it being, like, say, a personality from information to a personality. It's never going to mimic a human personality. And I think, seeing that in other videos where they have had, like, different videos where they've used the AI voice over in the video, it just takes the human aspect out of it.
So you think that, I can totally understand that. You think that because this is a human touched sport, it's going to have the human touch refinement and or lack of refinement, because that's what makes us human. Is that roughly?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. I mean, you have that excitement in the voice, you have that, and that's something that right now AI hasn't really been able to replicate, and I don't really see it going over into the commentator side of it. It'll give you the information, but as far as doing the commentating for it, I really don't see it.
The one thing I was curious about, and it's happening pretty fast, I don't know, did you see there was that video that was released where Tom Cruise and Brad Pitt were fighting?
No, not yet.
You ought to check it out. It's pretty accurately done. You can tell it's still a hair glitchy, but it seems like that the AI is getting us more down. But again, from artificial intelligence, artificial general intelligence, and then ASI superintelligence, I'm real curious, and it's neat talking to people that do the physical aspects. You're going there at the game, finding the person you want to interview, you're physically there. I'm really finding that AI is not going to be touching most of this stuff for quite some minute. So the NHL was founded, 1917?
Yeah.
Montreal. So this is a Canadian-based sport, period. I'm not saying that, I'm pretty sure people in the United States and Europe and everywhere else were probably skating on a frozen pond and probably slapping something around, but the actual National Hockey League was created in 1917. So back then, there wasn't even radio coverage. So when you think about the whole trades and transition and how technology is expanding, so the only time you got to see a hockey game was if you were there. So how do you think the whole commentary thing evolved? And what do you think was the technology? Was it the radio that pushed its evolution from the commentator?
Well, originally, when they had the original teams, it was more or less you bought tickets to go to the game, and it was the commentary, the live commentary inside the arena that didn't reach outside. Because let's face it, they didn't have radio back then. They didn't have TV much to speak of. I mean, they didn't have radio hardly at all. And then it transitioned into radio, and once they saw where there was a market, it was pretty much a local market to, say, like Montreal or to New York. And when those two teams were playing each other, it was pretty much the Montreal team, the Montreal area, and the New York listening area pretty much got the games, and that was that. And so as time has grown, as time has passed on and evolution has taken place and the expansion of the NHL, then it's been able to reach more markets. And then with the evolution of radio and TV, when radio come about, then they were pretty much doing the play-by-play people there from the arena announcing the game on the radio simultaneously. And then from there, radio, TV, and then it was reaching more and more as it grew. Those teams reach more and more people and more areas, and it's just grown from there. And now today, what we see is you can live in Germany and buy a package and watch the Hurricanes play hockey in Germany.
In Europe, yeah.
And so, and that's just how it's grown.
Dude, I didn't even think about it that way until you said it. Like, if you talk about radios, they didn't really become a thing till the 1920s, 1930s. But then, so even in the last section where we're talking about electronics and how the different things evolved over time, from vacuum tubes into transistors. So before you even got transistors, so at the vacuum tube, AM frequency, when you're saying Montreal, even if when they did get the radio, it didn't go but so far because they didn't have the capacitance or the wattage to push it. So that's exactly what this is for. This is technology, how it's evolving, and how are we going to evolve, keep up with it, become hand in hand friends with it. Does it take over? Is it going to remain a tool? This is really cool, man.
Yeah,
I'm really glad you decided to do this with me. So the first AI of sports was actually radio, because it translated the game for people who couldn't see it, and that's roughly what Kyle just said. And that makes sense, because I would have never even known what hockey was if I wouldn't have heard about it through either a person or through some type of transmittance. So it seems like on a timeline highlights, 1920s 30, radio play-by-play begins. And also remember, because I screwed up in my last video, it was not Motorola. It was Motorola installed the first car radio.
Right.
In 1930, not Motorola. So it seems like 1930 is the pivotal point. Now, how fast, and let me just see, how fast did it spread into the United States and surrounding areas once the radio, how quickly has the NHL grown?
Well, let's see. From there, we got. Let's see.
That's a pretty loaded question now that I think about it.
Yeah, there's 40 some teams now. Like 40. I'll just look it up and go from there.
Yeah.
Let's see here.
Yeah, just as he's looking that up, it seems like 1920s to 1930s, radio play-by-play begins. Again, Motorola installed the first car radio and loudspeaker in the 1930s. So, and by 1950, television brings visuals. But just being a guy that grew up in the country, I didn't have internet until I was, moved out. So I was 20 years old. So even the television didn't even really hit my world. So again, I would have never even been part of this. And then it seems like by 1970s, 1990s, color commentary and slow motion telestrators were becoming more common.
So in there's over So if you start with, let's see. So there's like 42 teams in the NHL today. And that's covering all the divisions, the conferences, and the overall league is 42 teams in the NHL today. And so with that, you had originally 8 teams, 6 or 8 teams that started, and it just grew from there. It gradually grew to what it is today. And the Hurricanes came to Raleigh from Hartford, Connecticut, and they came in 96, 97 season.
Wow.
And so they started play, and they started off in Greensboro. What's now the New Horizon Coliseum, which was then the Greensboro Coliseum. And it was pretty much on radio. They broadcast on radio, and to see the games, you couldn't even watch the games on TV. You either listened to it on radio, and if you wanted to see it, then you had to buy tickets to the game to go and see them in Greensboro.
You think that was strategic?
No, it was pretty much a necessity, because the way they do it is by ratings, and with a smaller audience, they want to build that, or with smaller attendances, they want to build that attendance up.
Yeah.
And they were in a smaller arena that didn't house but about 10, 12,000 people at the time, and now they're in an arena where there's like 30,000, over 30,000 people. And over the past 2 or 3 seasons, they've sold out every single game that they've been in. So
I noticed that with your videos that you showed me from where you and your wife have been going to some of them. Those stands are packed.
Yeah.
They are full.
Yeah.
And in that one where everybody was cheering and they put the decibels up there on the street, 106 dBs, that's a loud place.
It's one of the loudest, if not the loudest arena in NHL.
That is crazy,
and
dude.
They call it the loudest house, and they call it that for a reason, because they are really, really loud.
Y'all really like your hockey. I'll give you that.
It's deafening. When you go, it gets deafening.
So, in your opinion, what makes a really great commentator? Is it knowledge? Is it emotion? Is there passion? Yeah, what do you think makes a good interviewer commentator?
It's a little bit of both. It's a little bit of all of that. What really makes a good commentator is knowing the team, knowing the coaches, knowing a little bit of the and by knowing that stuff, and knowing game histories and how the coaches will play players, and how they'll stack them in the lineup, what goalie's going to play what game. Sometimes they'll throw you a curveball and you can't predict it, and they're like, oh, we're going with this goalie again. And like with the Hurricanes, they just played Frederick Anderson, who is their starting goalie. They played him back-to-back games, and then we didn't play again until today. And they played, I think it was Thursday night was their last game they played since today. They'll play at 5 o'clock today, which is Saturday. And there was a little bit of back and forth between different people who are closer to the team than what I am. And they were like, well, there's a possibility they could start Freddie again this game and then play Bussy the next game, and and swap them up like that until playoffs, which there's about 10 games left till playoffs. And because the way since the Olympic break, there's been some downfalls in one goalie before the Olympic break, and then the other one since the Olympic break. He was on fire, and then the Olympic break came, and he just kind of went down. The other one picked back up. So there was that in that decision making. But then they were like, no, we'll play him instead of making him play 3 games. We'll put him in and make him play the one. And so there, and knowing that, and knowing. Like say for instance in trade deadline, by you have a mid-season and an end of season, which is around the draft time. you know what positions they're pretty much looking for, and if you follow the team very long and you know what style they're looking for, then you know pretty much what they're looking for as far as what position and how much money or how much money they're willing to spend or how little money they're willing to spend to bring that player in, and all of that has a factor into that as well.
So if I were to compare, say, your commentating and interviewing toward more of like a physical trade job, I can tell you every tool that's in every toolbox that I have and exactly where it's at.
Mm-hmm.
It's positioned the way I left it positioned. That way if somebody messes with it, I know somebody other than me has touched my stuff. So you're saying a good commentator, they know it backwards and forwards.
Yep.
They can actually kind of even start predicting some of the things that are going to happen.
Yeah.
Just due to historical events.
Yep. And
that makes sense.
and that's like, with me and Josh, my co-host, who co-hosts the show with me, our live show on Facebook. We talk a lot. We talk almost every day, and we toss ideas back and forth. Well, what about, they're looking for this. Well, what about this? What about that? And then come the mid-season trade deadline, for instance, this season, we were tossing back possibilities of what could happen. I said, well, what about this? There's a player on our team that they were looking to trade. I said they haven't had a bite on him, and there was some teams that were looking to get him, and they didn't bite on him, so that left a little bit less cap. So I said, what about the possibility they don't go after anybody? Because the prices are going to be higher in the mid-season traditionally than they are at end of season, and the more desperate the team looks to get a player, the higher the price the people are going to jack up, and they're going to jack that price up on that player that the other teams are looking at. And so I said, so there's a possibility they couldn't do that. And sure enough, they didn't go after a big ticket player. They went after one that was more of an enforcer and somebody that can get in there and throw their weight around a little bit and say, hey, you're not screwing with my guy, that type of thing. And he cost a lot less than what another player would have cost. So, and with that, you're able to predict, knowing what they're going to do, and knowing what they've done in the past. It pays off to know that, as well as what's going on currently in the system, to be able to make those calls and pretty much predict what's going on. And then, and with the tools that we have through internet, with the websites and things like that, years before they didn't have that. And that goes back to the last segment we're in, and you were talking about how things have how things transitioned. They had radio, they had TV, coming in, and most of all, before, all they had to go off of was newspaper, before radio, and as they were getting that, and that printed nationally. So, those things transitioned over into this, into my job now, and using those tools to get information. And that's, and scheduling out, okay, this is this, and then putting the show together that way.
Yeah, you're right, dude. And I see both in watching you talk about this. I see your passion. Your passion's what drives the curiosity. And that's pretty cool, man. I'm glad you have a good hobby that you love, because that's really awesome. So you're basically, the commenter became the bridge between the game and the audience's understanding. You're actually bringing them the knowledge. Now, and you just touched point on this a little bit, talking about the radio, but some of the key advancements that I was curious about is, so instant replay, multi-camera angles, digital overlays, stats, puck tracking, and then HD broadcasting. So when you think about, holy crap, there was just a little town in Canada that decided to slap some stuff around and get people excited, to now you can actually slow it down in real time and catch back up to, real time.
Yeah.
So what is puck tracking? What is puck tracking? Is that literally just following the puck at a closer angle?
Yeah, that, and in the very beginning, and they give you a little bit of history on the puck. Where they got puck from, the name puck, is they'd pretty much go out on the ice, and they'd go out in the field and find a turd, like cow turd or something. And
really?
They'd take it and shave it down to a
got it, to the
thing
right
that
side,
that they could slap around. It would just, because back then it was
so
more of a thing.
Hockey puck is poop.
Yeah, that's the original. That's the original thing of it. And
Fair, man, fair.
And they had, and it would slide on the ice pretty good because there was several different things that they tried, and that was the original hockey puck. And they would slap it around on the ice, and they were out on literally frozen ponds playing, and see little fish flies swimming by on it. What the hell? But as time has evolved, they have evolved the puck into vulcanized rubber. They use different materials to make it, but then they come down to vulcanized rubber in about a 2-inch across
Circular shape.
Yeah. And that seemed to work okay, but then they realized, well, if we take this puck and we throw it in the freezer, don't put water on it, just throw it in the freezer and freeze it. It makes it harder, and it makes it easier to slide on the ice when you hit it. And so that's what they started doing. So the technology there has evolved. And then now it's even evolved a little bit further, and they've put they cut the puck, hollow it out, and put it back together, vulcanize it back together, but they've got sensors that's all the way around the puck on the inside the puck.
Accelerometers and gyroscopes.
And it just it gives how fast the puck was hit, how fast the pressure it was hit with, the speed of the puck going to the net, whether it fully crossed over, because sometimes the goalies, there's players around, you can't see it, but the sensors inside of it communicate with hundreds of sensor points around the arena and over the net, and even inside the net, that picks that up as soon as it crosses over. And there's sensors within the goalpost that or near the goalpost that pick that up, and it senses as soon as it fully crosses over the line, it's a goal.
Yeah, so I could definitely see where a person in the crowd that couldn't see it can at least remain engaged because they heard it via the buzzer.
Yep.
Yeah, that's cool, man. So do you think technology made the job easier or harder for commentators and interviewers and people that are trying to broadcast? Do you think these technologies made this easier for you guys?
I believe so. I think in the beginning it was more or less like learning curves. With the new technology, you have to learn it.
Yep.
And I think some of the hesitation, at least with me and what I do, even before that, it was, you got to go to the news, but you got to figure this out. You have to get with the statistician at the arena and, pull all that information from them. They publish it to different ones, and it just goes from there. But now it's the touch of a button. It's, internet, and you go to the internet and you can pull different information from different websites. And one of those is a website that I use, and it shows like a heat map, what they call a heat map, and it shows the different points of where the puck was shot from, and the darkest of the color to the lightest of the color, the darkest being where most of the shots come from, to the lighter where there wasn't hardly any shots taken from. And they take that information, and then there's stats that they use, and all of those stats are either Corsi stats or Fencer stats, and they use those to track those different, from individual players to 5-on-5 play, 4-on-5 play, 3-on-5 play, depending on the penalty, the power play or the penalty kill, which is the opposite of power play, where they have the least amount of players on the ice, the one or two being in the penalty box. And so they take those stats and they present those stats as well. And then the individual player, how fast he hit the puck and not. We got one player on our team, Alexander Nikishin. He's Russian. He's a true rookie this year. His average shot is around 80-85 miles an hour. And whenever he really plows it good, it's 91 to 95 miles an hour. And you're talking a piece of rubber that's yay big and about that thick coming at you at 90 plus miles an hour. That's going to hurt if it hits you. And so he's the fastest shot that we have on the team. He's not very fast skating, but he's got a shot.
Slap
and
across the ice real quick.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And so it has the puck has those sensors in there as well. So you pull those stats, and that's where those come from. And that's what starting out. That's what I used mostly. Was those websites and listening to other commentators as well, or in analytics or analysts, on their shows, and I pull from them, and I would come up with my own thing from their information and present it in the shows, and that's how I started out doing that.
Got it. So more data equals more responsibility. And so, say faster game, faster thinking. So, I would assume that as the technology has advanced, has the hockey league, has it gotten more complicated, adding more stats and paying attention to more? It sounds like it has, to just give the fan more and more and more information.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
and it's fan driven. I mean, everything that they do is driven by the fan. Well, back originally they said, this player had an assist, he passed the puck to this one, that one passed it to this one, and this one shot the puck and got the goal, and that was pretty much your stats. But now with how it's evolved, players want to know, well, how long was he on the ice for, how long did he play that game, how many minutes did he get in this period, how many shots did he have at the goal, and how fast was those shots going to the goal, and where was he making these shots from, and where is most of his shots coming from that he makes, and things like that. And that's where all of those Corsi stats and defensor stats all come from, is from that, and it's fan driven, and it's analytic driven as well, because whenever you're going in, say as a general manager, and you're looking to draft a player, or you're looking to bring a player in from another team, well, what is his stats? What is his true analytics? And that's where all of that information was driven from as well. Not just fans, but the owners and general managers and coaches of the different teams whenever they go in to trade players for another player and things like that.
That's what I was curious. That was my next curiosity, because I can be like, well, how can this person say be that 90 mile an hour puck slapper guy or goalie, or pick a position, and then how often are they out there? So is this person really good for 5 minutes? Is this person really good for 15 minutes, or the full 3 25-minute sections? And that, as a person that wants to pay to get more crowds, it would be making that person more valuable with the higher stats. Totally makes sense. I just never broke hockey down like that.
and like with the Hurricanes, we have about 5 or 6 players that will average about 19 to 20 minutes of ice time per game, because they go when a shift comes out, they have 3-4 different shifts, and when those shifts come out, it'll be like, say they start the game with the second shift, the second line. They'll bring the second line out to start the game off, because our best face-off guy is on the second shift. And then they'll rotate to the third shift, and then they'll rotate to the first shift, and very seldom the fourth shift is the shift that sees the least amount of ice time. And they will bring them out occasionally when the other guys have played so much. They'll bring them out and let them play to give them a true break. But for the most part, they'll usually get about maybe 10 minutes, 12 minutes of ice time during the game. But for the most part, it's the first 3 lines that see most of the action on the ice.
So your tools get better over time. That all these things, your tools are getting better, so that means your expectations get higher. Mm-hmm. I wonder how far it's going to evolve. Like that's what I'm curious about. This is just the general concept of it. Like we were talking about it last time. Keep up with different things, robotic technologies, and the Unitree robots. It's like, I wonder if and when there would or maybe be a robot like hockey team. You know what I mean? It sounds crazy, but I'm just curious. It just seems neat.
Yeah, well, you say that, but then you look at combat sports, and you see now they've made combat robot sport where they get in there with the robots and let them fight. Like they're robots that travel by wheel on the ground.
You like Robot Wars?
Yeah. And so that could be a possibility in the future if if they get these humanoid robots going,
kind of nailed down.
Then I could very well see that in the future.
Bro, I'm not promoting for anyone when I say this, but Boston Dynamics Atlas, it's very human, in its movements.
Yeah.
So to shift a little bit, internet streaming, social media clips, advanced analytics, of course you were talking about your Corsi and your Fenwick, etc. So do fans today understand the game differently than they used to?
Yeah.
A lot more detailed?
Yeah. They're more involved with it, especially now, you have not just your home team or your favorite team, whoever they may be, but you have with merchandise sales, you have individual players' jerseys and merchandise that they sell with their names on it. So you have that aspect of it that brings that to the fans. So they're more likely to not just follow a specific team, but a specific player.
Ah, got it.
And so that draws a lot of that, again, back to the analytics and other stuff. It brings it back to that. And, they understand the game more so now than what they used to, than back in the day, and they understand like some of the different aspects that drive the game, and the NHL has really focused that down and has made it to where they can reach those certain aspects with the certain fans and have a diverse audience by doing that.
Got it. So basically this is stepping into something that's even bigger than analytics. So old fans watch the game. New fans, they watch data and the game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you'll see a lot of some of the older fans, they're, like you said, they're more interested in the game itself. Like, you go out and watch the baseball game here, and, you may keep up with some of the players once you get to know the team and the players and stuff, but for the most part, the average fan's going just to enjoy the game, whereas you have the more advanced knowledge fan who follows the players and the analytics and stuff like that, and so that's where you get that from.
That's a neat key little concept. What percentage, just a ballpark guess, of the people that attend are literally just a family, a son and a dad or an uncle and a grandchild that's just there for the hot dogs, the beer, and have a good time? What do you think the mixture of that is between the more hardcore analytic fans versus just a good Sunday time?
90% of the fans are there to see the team and their favorite player play, and also a lot of the fans are there. Once they go back and look. They're looking at the analytics. They're looking at those highlight plays. They're looking at what their player did or what the team did as a whole. And you have probably about 5% of that ticket paying audience or the home viewer audience that's just looking at it just to look at it as, hey, this is my sport, I like it, and I'm going to watch it. Who wins, who loses, and that's that. So the more advanced stuff is, because let's face it, today information is just a fingertip away, whereas before it wasn't, as we discussed, and that's just the way it's flowed, and these sports, the different sports organizations, they understand that, and they understand what's driving people to the stadiums, what's driving people to watch them on TV. Well, number one, yes, it is the win-loss factor, but also it's the merchandising, it's the what is this player doing, and you'll see that when you watch the TV analyst on TV. They'll talk about certain players, and they tend to veer away from certain players that's not really performing well. And so it has a lot to do with that, the way the fans come in and view the game. But I'd say probably the breakdown on it's probably 90% come to watch the team and to watch their player, and then break down the analytics and the rest of in an amateur kind of way of glancing through it. And then there's the others who come there to just watch the game, enjoy the ambiance, and enjoy the crowd.
Yeah. You're talking about the and this is perfect for trades in transition. We mentioned there was no transmittance of the game to the newspaper, to the radio, then the TV, now internet and computers.
Yeah.
When I was younger and I had to tear apart motorcycles or working on things, I had to go. So I could say Dewey Decimal System.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yep.
who out there watching this actually knows what the Dewey Decimal System is? It's not to make fun, but it's a whole thing.
Yep.
But then when I say microfilm, if I had to figure out how to replace a charging component or a carburetor, on a whatever, I had to go to like the Honda dealership, or I had to go to the library, and I had to find a microfilm, put it under a magnifier, and find the section.
Yep.
So I personally love technology. As a farm boy that never had the internet till he moved out, well, I didn't have internet till I was in my 20s. So to find out there's this whole new world of I press a button and there's information, it is just absolutely awesome.
Yeah.
It is awesome.
Yep.
So let's try, and I know I'm going to push on it a little bit because there's some things I see, but AI and commentary. So, and I get, and because we've already kind of touched base on it, but I'm going to go back into, I really do believe that it's very close to an AI being able to perform certain functions and even look and sound more human. But could AI call a game? And so AI can already track players in real time, generate stats instantly, but you say sometimes it's not completely correct, so I get that, and create automated play-by-play. This actually exists today. But can it feel momentum and can it understand pressure? I think that's your point.
Yeah, no, I don't think so. I know probably in the future it will, but I think that with that there is there as it evolves, there will be a time and a place for it. But and even maybe on internet to start out with, it you could have it where like on YouTube or something like that you would have that. But with the technology the way it is right now, relying on it, at least with the AI that I deal with, you have that lag of 20 to 30 minute lag in score and play. Now I say that, but it was a couple of weeks ago, I was outside washing the car back when it was warm a little bit. I was outside washing the cars and getting them cleaned up and everything. And the game come on at 7 o'clock. It was 7 o'clock start time. It was about 5:30 in the afternoon, 5:30 in the evening. And I asked AI, I said, hey, what time is the game tonight? 7 p.m. I was like, okay, well, who's favored to win the game? Carolina Hurricanes are favored by this, that, and the other. They were under at 130, 100 and some odd points. Okay, well, that's good. And then it said, do you want me to tell you when the game starts? I was like, yeah, sure. About 20 minutes later, it pops up. The game is about to start. Carolina Hurricanes are still favored to win by da-da-da-da-da. Do you want me to update you during the game? I was sure. About 10 minutes later, it pops back on that says the Hurricanes just scored a goal. 1-0 is the score. Aho got the puck, passed it to Jarvis. Jarvis scores at da-da-da-da-da time in the game. I was like, the game hasn't even started yet. How are you pulling this up? Oh, you're right. I'm sorry. And it just goes into this, and I'm like, and so, I pushed it off and didn't think any more about it. I went in, showed my wife, who's now our executive producer for our show, and I showed her. I said, look at this. I said, the damn thing's trying to predict the game.
But did it?
And so later on, the game starts. Sure enough, and the game's played live, so there's no way the AI could know ahead of time
Freaking
what's
me out
going
right
on.
now.
So yeah, it totally. And so at the exact second of the game, Aho passes the puck to Jarvis. Jarvis shoots, and in it went. And I sat there and I was like, "Oh,
you sent me a text about this. I remember that."
And it just totally freaked me out. And I wish that I'd have saved that in the AI so I could show it. But it actually happened. I showed Ellie. I was like, "Hey, look, check this out. Look at this crap. The game's yet to start. There's 45 minutes before the game even starts, and it's already saying who's winning." I was like, "Come on now." And so, that totally freaked me out. But then it got me thinking about, what along the lines of what we're talking about. What does this have in store for the future? Mm-hmm. If it's able to predict one single goal at the exact same time that it's actually scored, then what else? But then on the backside of that, I was messaging during the game or right before the game started on a different game, and it told me some stuff, and then after the game, I was like, "Well, you were totally wrong on this, this, and this. You could have costed me bunches of money if I'd have bet money on this." And so, I don't really, with that being said, I don't really think that AI is ready to take on the analytic. They can take on the analytics, but it draws from websites. It doesn't have its own analytic. And it would have to learn that, and there's a process to that. And then, even then, after it learns the basics, that's still continuing. But then, with the commentating part, the real time, the fast pace of the game, I really don't. I know that they can in certain sports and things like that, but the way that hockey's played today, I don't really think it's ready to be like a mainstream thing.
Yeah.
Just because of how fast it is, and the other things that go with it, it would miss parts of the game, and even humans do that. But I think with the gap, I think it would miss bigger parts of the game than even what the human eye does.
Well, and I think and so I still think you're more correct than I would be at my assuming. A lot of times when you hear someone talk, or you want to hear someone talk, it's because you want to hear them talk. Mm-hmm. It's not just that they're telling you 2 + 2 is 4, mm-hmm. but it's because Bob is saying 2 + 2 is 4, and I came to see Bob just like I wanted to hear the 2 + 2 = 4. Mm-hmm. Yep. And I do find that it's going to be pretty tricky, at least for our generation. But I'm going back into the younger generation that may not know what a Dewey Decimal System mm-hmm. is, that has their online girlfriend through Grok. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like, just I'm talking like what we find. So we were talking before this actually segment started. The Army. I'm not sure if all of armed forces did this, but they upped their recruitment age to 42, and they've upped it to 42 because they can't find mature people. Mm-hmm. And so, and with drone fighting and this, that, and the other, so the physical body doesn't have to be on the ground as much anymore. So they're literally looking for mature and intelligent brains. And there was another stat that I was looking at a couple of days ago. I can't remember the exact number, so don't hold me to it. But it was like 30 or 45, 47% mm-hmm. of is it Gen Z's, the youngest generation mm-hmm. we have right now. Mm-hmm. They can't even operate a computer. Mm-hmm. Like they can operate these, but they can't operate a computer. And there's a lot of computer jobs still out there. Yeah. And so what back into that transitioning in trade, say you're a commentator. When Bob is dead or Bob retired and Bob's no one there for you to log into, but now this person that's 30 years younger than you is used to seeing an AI generated whatever, they may actually emotionally connect to this thing. Mm-hmm. They may, whatever it is. Mm-hmm. So I kind of like with the last interview, I agreed with Alan. The person physically going into the car, the person physically going to do the interview, mm-hmm. that's not going to change right away. Mm-hmm. But I do believe something is coming for that. I saw a Unitree video where they had 2 robots assisting a human taking apart a car and putting a motor in. Mm-hmm. I don't think the robots were capable of doing what was the full job, but mm-hmm. for the fact that they're pushing that envelope, I'm telling you, man, I really believe it's coming.
Yeah.
So when AI starts asking questions, So past interviewers, player performance trends, emotional tone. Do you think that, so right now in AI, you're basically pushing back on the emotional tone is what it's going to lose. It does not going to have the emotional, psychological connection that, say, Bob the commentator or you as an interviewer, it's not going to have that, hey, I want to see what Kyle's doing today. And I can agree with that. I really agree with that.
Yeah.
So what did your shot selection change in the third period compared to your last 5 games? It's something it could ask, and it's knowledgeable of doing it. So that is what I would consider next level interviewing, and you're basically saying that it's not there yet.
No.
It can't break it down like that. Okay. So let me ask you this. When you have a person that is curious about a player or curious about, and so they may be a Carolina Hurricanes fan until this player goes to another team. So they could just be strictly for that player.
Yeah.
So how do you feel about AI and a fan experience with personalized broadcasts, real-time stat overlays tailored to viewer, and AI-generated highlights? What I'm kind of asking with that is, let's say I only want 20 of the 30 stats. I really don't care about that. So I can literally have my AI commentator give me just what I want. Kind of back to that mom and dad or going there to eat the hot dog and have fun versus the actual stat. Do you think that could be a way to kind of push the human commentator interviewer kind of out of the limelight?
In some aspects, yes. Because like you said, you got these fans that are specific player or specific team and specific analytics. Whereas in even in today's commentary, you see, they can tell by viewership, like during the intermissions and things like that. They can tell by viewership when the most people are watching, when and then when it slacks off, during different points of the intermissions when they're talking about different things, and and especially when they go into analytics and talking about different analytics, then they can see the viewership, ebb and flow through that section of the intermission. And I think that the NHL's done really good at, and especially like not just the NHL, but you have your individual teams who have their own broadcast of the games. So for the Carolina Panthers, you see that they specifically talk about certain analytics, and I think that's what has driven them to do that, is the fan input and what they're seeing in viewership during those times, is what they add and what they take away from the intermission reports.
So you're saying, okay, so you can actually get kind of custom tailored broadcast because you're watching it through the eyes of the team and the person you're following. I get that.
And too, like there's like for the Carolina Hurricanes, in the past they would just do their thing, but now they're more fan driven, and like now the Lenovo Center is being, which was previously PNC Arena, it's being rebuilt, reconstructed inside. They're doing renovations to it, and they're through their fanship, certain focal points from their fanship, they've gone in and like they'll send out an email to like certain fans and that are in this thing, and you sign up for it and they'll send you a questionnaire. Well, what do you like about and this happened a couple of years ago. They sent out an email or a text message, would you be willing to participate in this survey? What would you like to see changes in as far as food? What would you like to see as far as seating? What would you like to see as far as this, that, and the other? And now that they're doing the renovations, you're seeing a lot of those ideas that were very popular going into that. And it's those things that they use in this case to focalize that toward the fan viewership. And so, like analytics, or like, let's talk about this player. Of course, they're going to talk about the players who's performed, but what other players can they talk about? And they use that, what are the most popular players on the team? And, they take those and talk about those as well. So that's, other things that they can use to focus that. whereas AI, they know the popular players, but do they know the breakdown of the deep stats or whatever that is wanting to be known about that player or that team?
Yeah. Then and on that, it's hard. I think fans now would want a human voice, not a perfect voice. That pretty fair?
Yeah. Yep.
I agree with you, and I think that's where we as people, that is going to be our strength moving forward, is focusing on people, and not perfection. And I mean, we're going to strive, don't get me wrong, but just like in, say, a shop environment, a tradesman, a true talented person learns from failure. And that's the thing, so I use all sorts of different AIs and ChatGPT primarily because it pretty much does what I need it to do. But the one thing I think that it does horribly at, Cloud is pretty good. They're all bad at this. I'll take it back. They're all bad at this. They're constantly trying to make things perfect or more real. Yeah. It's almost like it's a kid that's been bullied and it just wants to prove it can. And I'm constantly having to say, hey, could you help me draw this? Like I can do the stick figure bit, but can you do this? And then before I know it, it's turned something that I was really happy about, kind of an old grainy looking picture, into something that's realistic. And I'm constantly having to say no. Yeah. And that is one thing that if it doesn't get a handle on, we in our age range are going to reject it more because it's trying to change us. Yeah. And I like, say, 1980s Voltron. I like the way it was drawn. I like the whole thing. I don't want it to be newer looking. I like the grainy texture. Yep. So I can definitely see that definitely humans would want to remain connected to a human voice.
And lo, the game did change, as all things wrought by time. From the frozen pond to the voice upon the wire, from the wire to the screen, and from the screen unto the thinking machine. And the craftsman did ask, if the machine can speak, what then becomes of me? The machine may know the game, but it hath not stood upon the ice, nor felt the weight of the moment upon its chest. Therefore, fear not the tool that grows in knowledge, but beware the man who forgets why he first picked it up.
So, emotion, imperfection, and storytelling. A machine can describe the game, but can it care about it? Not right now. No. And then go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I was just like, and what is care? Now, the one thing that I would throw into this is, because I do like the technology and aspects of things, none of the AI we're currently utilizing is using any quantum computing, right? It's all processed in binary. It's either on or off, 1 or 0. So you ask it a question, it's yes or no, it's black or white, it's whatever, at the bit level. When the quantum computing, now it can ask yes, no, and maybe. I think maybe is where consciousness lives. That's just an opinion of mine. I think that's when it could care, because then it decides whether it wants yes or no. It's not just going yes or no.
Right.
So, timeline. Where do you think this goes in 10 to 20 years? So, yeah, how fast do you think this is going to transit? Because will it transition to AI? And how fast do you think, if you had to bet, or are you going to bet a certain amount of time that you just think this isn't going to happen?
Honestly, I think that the way AI is used now is the way it's going to be. I don't think that they're going to take over unless it's done like on live streams from YouTube or something like that, where they've got it, somebody may be live streaming something and they've got AI connected to it and it's making the play-by-play call. That's the only situation I could see that be used in, just because it's the humans are behind it, and unless there's some kind of analytic that the NHL sees where it's driving more and more toward that, then I think they would hesitantly drive toward that slowly and cautiously.
See if they can monetize it.
But I really don't see it becoming like a total NHL thing, because you have the NHL, who has their own radio, Sirius Radio, XM radio station, their own channels on cable and satellite networks, and they have their own broadcasters and analysts on those stations. And then you have the individuals that have, like the teams who have contracts through, like, say, FanDuel Sports Network, and for MSG, Madison Square Garden Network, things like that, for the Rangers, Islanders, and they have their own analytic teams and things like that. So I just really don't think there's too many people involved in that to where it would go definitively that direction, just because people and fans just want that human connection. And I don't really think, with the older fans and then the newer fans coming in, the older fans kind of dictate to the younger fans and kind of train their line of thought into that as well. So I really don't think, I think that it has its space in sports in general. I just don't think it has its space in doing the commentary, doing the play-by-play. I just really don't. I really don't see that at all happening. At least, in the next maybe 50, 60 years, probably, maybe, but I doubt it.
Every person that I've interviewed and not recorded, like I just meet them, like boiler repair guys, welders, people that again, back to the beginning, people that physically go and interview, I'm really starting to agree that I don't think the trades are going to transition as quickly as I first thought they were going to. I'm actually pleasantly surprised by this.
Yeah.
Because I figure, like from frozen ponds to packed arenas, radio waves to digital streams, and now to artificial intelligence, the game keeps moving. And it's just, the question is, do we move with it? But I don't know if there's a to move with it in this.
Yeah.
Like, I know that there's not going to be a robot go out there and take a tube out of a furnace and take one out and put it back in. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
So, electrician up a pole, as I've questioned Chat and Cloud and Grok and different things, they all say the same thing. Even when I was getting prepared for this, I just asking him certain things like, the interviewing experience, is AI going to be capable of captivating? And they pretty much are agreeing with no. It's just not.
Yeah.
Because that even the breaking out the phone and like, oh, let me ask this, it takes away from the person you're actually talking to. There's our brains have changed from what I consider ROM-driven brains. A person back in the 17, 16, 1500s that traveled the world and knew 5 languages, they knew it because they had to know it.
Yeah.
So that got stored into their ROM. But we're being trained to utilize our random access memory. So we learn things and then dump it the next day to learn more things.
Yeah.
But it don't stick with us anymore. So that's one way that I do know that this technology is changing us. We have to learn things faster, but we have to dump them just as quick to learn the next thing.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, cool, man. This has been pretty neat. In closing, I do want to say at least again thank you, because I think it's just interesting to learn new things. What started your passion when you say, and I want to tailor it as in, so the newer millennial comes in, the Gen Z, the younger person, whatever the person is, and I honestly don't keep up with it. I just say young people because now I'm getting old. But you know what I mean? Like I'm turning into that old fart. Like, But how, if the mom and dads and the older people that are at these sporting events is what is actually getting the younger people to understand the importance of the physicality, the commentation, the managers, and all the things, how did you become involved in this, and how would you promote this to your audience in it moving forward? How would you suggest this to younger people that are always on their phone, expect all their answers from AI? What would you tell them to convince them that they do want the human connection?
Well, I mean, just from the fact that going to the games. It's not just a lot of older people. It's people that are the generation under us and even under them that are attending the games. And it's because of the action that's on the ice, because of what is being played or performed in front of them. It draws their attention. That draws them away from the tablet, from the phone, from, you know, and it disconnects them for that 2 hours or hour and a half or 2.5 hours that they're at the game, or 2.5 hour and a half, 2.5 hours that they're at the game, and it draws their attention away from that because they have something that they are physically watching and they're having to keep up with, and the speed and everything that's going on. And you got something that's this big on the ice, and you may be sitting way up, and it's about the size of a pepper flake, and it's floating around on the ice, and it's you want to keep up with it because you want to see what the action is around that, and so it really draws their attention to that. It gives them something else to focus on for a while.
Got it.
And it gives them that break from that, and with that, in that moment, they're like, I really don't need this. This is fun.
Yep.
And they realize that there's something outside of that realm of,
Mm-hmm.
and they realize that, and it's good for them. And also they're learning, like, hey, this is a human touch. This is different. This is unique. And, hearing that PA announcer over there, and the excitement in their voice or the disappointment in their voice. And, you don't get that with tablets, phone, unless you're talking to somebody on the other end. They're really pissed off or really excited about something. But with AI, you don't really get that experience.
No.
You do to an extent, but not the fullest extent that it is with a human.
Yeah, I can agree with that. Well, dude, it's been fun. I really appreciate it again. I hope you guys have enjoyed this little segment. Trades in Transition, got Carolina Hurricanes OnlyFans. You'll see some links in my description. Go check him out. He's got a large fan base on Facebook. Got a lot of videos. Got some really silly videos. Some of you really should check out, especially him and his wife laying in bed with the Gollum face. I thought that was absolutely hilarious. So wherever you guys and girls are, day or night, I hope you're having a great one, and keep them running.
Trades in Transition.